So in my universe, this topic of neurodiversity has become more prominent, I would say just over the past year, even 2 years, as an aspect of diversity that we need to be talking about at work. Um, why do you think it's becoming more prominent in your experience?
The topic of neurodiversity, I think partly with our generational shift, people talk about Gen Z coming into the workforce. We are also becoming more aware of mental health in general. And with that, we create a sort of acceptance that says it's okay to recognize where you've had struggles before. And I believe that is an important step. However, the companies that I work with, I always make sure that our values align because I want to know if they're interested in helping their employees reduce stress at work or practice active listening because they know the business benefits of that. They understand the
Yeah.
value.
But how do you gauge that? If you were in an interview as a potential new hire, how do you gauge that? Because, of course, you can go on the website and everyone's corporate values are on there, and they're all going to say that version of it, like we're inclusive,
Mhm.
we're this, or that. But are there any like key questions or key things that you look for to be able to tell, okay, do your actions and the reality of the culture match your words?
Mm-hmm. Definitely, you can ask, and I'm curious, you might do something similar, but I go to the website and I take the words off of their values page and I ask, how do you practice this?
Mm.
Have you brought in other people that gave workshops or did talks? How did it go? What was the response?
So on those lines, what are your tips or strategies or suggestions for how leaders can do a better job of creating an environment that supports neurodiverse employees?
Mm-hmm. So, the first thing I like to share with people is a framework for limiting assumptions. What we'll do if I start to solve an engineering problem, one of the first things to do is to write my assumptions. What do I think the environmental temperature is? And what do I think the material is like? And so we're already used to stating our assumptions a lot of the time, but we don't always bring it up when we're working with people. And so if we're in a team, I don't know if this has happened to you, but I've joined teams where I feel like I hit the ground running and they don't even know my last name, right? And so recognizing when we do that sort of onboarding phase too quickly, we actually lose the chance to really understand who we're working with.
Mhm.
And then our default, because we're humans, is to generalize everybody we've met before that looks like that person. And when we do that, based on the whole spectrum of diversity in our experience, it's challenging. It can be really detrimental. And so giving people a chance to explain how they communicate allows us to limit our assumptions and bring them to the forefront.
I love that. I think onboarding a new hire is such a pivotal moment where small things go a long way for people to feel that sense of belonging and feel like they've made the right choice in joining
Mhm.
that company because nobody feels that lack of belonging more than a new hire. Because just like you said, you don't know anybody or know anything and you're trying to figure out where you fit in. So I love the fact that you sort of framed onboarding as not just the time to get someone quickly up to speed to be productive in their role, but the time to really get to know the human that you've just hired. How do we, is there a way, I guess, early on, versus just getting to know someone over time and creating the environment for someone to be comfortable sharing. Is there a way early on, a proactive way that leaders can maybe pose a question to get to know if that's the case?
Mm-hmm. I believe we can do it every day. And the idea of creating psychological safety, sometimes we talk about it like this long-term goal that maybe could be developed over a few years. And I don't think that's the case. I think we can create psychological safety in one conversation. And a lot of times it has to do with vulnerability. So that can be telling someone your own struggles, something that you learned when you were at their experience level in the job, something that you didn't do well. I remember I borrowed a car once from Ford and someone stole a piece off of the car and I thought it was all my fault. And my supervisor, when I got the courage to tell him about 2 days later, because I couldn't find how to buy it online, he said, no, 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 don't worry about that at all. And he started to tell me about one time he got in a big car accident with a company car and it was all okay.
Hmm.
And I thought, yeah, yeah, you're right. I am going to make mistakes, and you've also made them. So even though we'll pretend like managers have more experience and for that reason make fewer mistakes,
Mhm.
they got to wherever they are because of the mistakes that they made, because of their struggles and how they've learned to
Yeah.
help themselves,
Yeah.
right?
So
Hmm.
just I hear what you're saying is really you just want to create the environment for people to feel comfortable speaking up and sharing when
Hmm.
maybe something unique about them rises to the level of they need some flexibility. You would not suggest a question,
Hmm.
are you neurodivergent at all, as part of onboarding? Too in your face, too blunt, eh?
Yeah, I think it really does depend on the person. So you can always ask leading questions. I brought up the example of my old boss because he actually also has ADHD and he opened a door when he started to talk to me just in general
Mhm.
about mistakes that he's made that helped me feel safe
Mhm.
talking to him. And if one or the other person does not identify as neurodivergent, we can still say what we struggle with and what our strengths are.